Welcome back to another episode of the Kiss and Tell podcast, where we keep the conversation going. I'm your host, Deanalette Seif, and I'm joined today by a very special guest, Anna Linde. Anna Linde, MS, is a sexologist and movement therapist treating adults and couples. Anna incorporates somatic sexology along with an emphasis on decolonization and utilizing trauma-informed practices. Anna Linde currently resides in Thailand. Hello and welcome, Anna.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for joining me. I'm super excited for our discussion today. Before we rolled in, I was just telling you how I was so intrigued by your pitch to have this conversation about international adoptees. What are their health realities? And, I was surprised just realizing, hey, I've never heard anyone talk about this before.
No, I think so. When I did my master, the thesis I wrote was an interview study with international adoptees in Sweden, where I asked, "How do you feel about your sexual health?" Or like, how would you describe that your sexual health is? And then when I was finished, I realized, obviously, when I was doing the thesis, that there is not so much work or research in the area or in the field for this population. So I wrote it as an academic article instead, and it's like last year when I published it, but it's one of its kind. So it hasn't been that many research opportunities or so much research in present time on the population. Yeah, like
Wow.
you're saying.
Wow. So it's pretty much like a burgeoning research focus. Like it's kind of early in its, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I think because adoption as a topic, it always hits somewhere personal for people. So and international adoptees in general is a population that has a lot of other types of struggles or other areas or challenges that are in focus. So when it comes to sexual health or reproductive health and rights, it's not a conversation that many are aware of the importance of having. Um, but as you know, and as probably all listeners knows as well, is that our mental health intersects with our sexual health always. They always come together in different ways. So to look at international adoptees that does have a lot of mental health challenges compared to other groups or compared to non-adoptees, it became even more interesting for me to look at sexual health, also because I'm adopted from Brazil and I'm raised in Sweden.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where specifically the transracial adoptee element comes in. Right. Just so many layers of identity, and I'm again not really hearing people talk about adoption status in those intersectional conversations.
No, and I think it's so much like ideas of being grateful or not. And it's ideas that puts many of us in conversations or discussions or situations where we end up in a either or like perspective, like it's better now, and it could have been like this,
Mm.
but that dichotomy by itself is problematic if we look at everything else in the world. It's either right or wrong, or you're accepted or not, or your heterosexual is norm, and so on and so on. So that way of organizing the world, from my perspective, is problematic. Like there's so many different nuances in between. So I think this is also why we don't talk about it yet, because we're still stuck in the either or, and we haven't really got a chance to unfold all of the things that are in between.
Right. So, in other words, adult adoptees throughout their lifetime are kind of told, hey, you should just be grateful that you were adopted and that you have a family. So, don't talk about what's on your mind, what you're worried about, your body.
Unfortunately, yes, I would say unfortunately, this is still how it is. And I think it's because the people, the parents, the people that are adopting or that adopted have, majority of them made that decision from a very loving point or like a loving place in their heart. So it's extremely problematic or difficult to be faced with a very different type of reality. Um, Also because it's not necessarily personal. Like
Yeah.
if I look back at my upbringing, I have a lot of good things to say. I have a lot of appreciation for so many different things. But to grow up as the only Black child with only white relatives, you know, whiteness everywhere, it's still a challenge that I need to figure out. And how that relates to sexual health is, of course, through relationships. Like, who do we date? Why do we date those people that we choose? And attachment and internalized racism. Like, there's so many different layers that is hard for people, for adult adoptees, but obviously for everyone else on earth as well to actually see it. Because what
Yeah.
is normal is what we think is normal, even if it's not maybe the best for us.
Yeah. And do you feel like from the parent side too, maybe there's an urge to kind of just say, well, my child's my child. Like perhaps if they are a different race or ethnicity, I don't have to look at that because they're just my child. And maybe that's also trying to come from, a positive place, but not seeing how that could be a harmful narrative that's not encompassing the person.
Yeah, and I think if I or if um, a white couple adopt a child from a different ethnicity or race, they they are adults at that point, and they didn't practice in facing those different realities. So when they are faced with having a child that face totally different type of everything,
Mhm.
everything, then it's also really hard to know what to do or
Right.
how to be supportive, because we are also, our parents is also a group that doesn't necessarily have support. So it becomes tricky. Like it's a lot of shame in that, like not being a good enough parent or not knowing what to do. And in the same time, we have the narrative of being grateful. And with
Mm,
that, also growing up in an environment that looks like that, whichever country or city we're in, then what happens with my identity when I'm taught to, assimilate into that culture or into that world, while it might not speak to me, like genuinely speak to me, and then that comes with its own
right,
type of challenges.
right. And even if you are, let's say, quote unquote, happily assimilating to the dominant culture, it doesn't necessarily change how other people are going to treat you, right?
No,
Yeah, yeah,
like it doesn't.
yeah.
No, it doesn't. No, sorry, like we're not winning on that one. And then, there's another perspective here also, that like what kind of sex education did we get, like our generation in school or everywhere? And then our parents, what did they get? Like
Yeah.
it's not, it's never really applicable to the reality that we're in, or the reality we need to face. And I think if I just look at my parents, I think that my personal challenges or my experiences with, being fetishized, that's a tricky topic for any parent to talk with their children, their daughters, their sons, their adults or teenagers or not.
Right.
Because how would they have words for that? And also, how would we have words to describe something when we're not taught in school or whatever sex education we got? What is the difference between, being like having an attachment to someone or feeling that we are aligned in what we're choosing to do? Or what do I do when I'm, on a date with somebody, which is, in my article, a couple of informants that shared that, like, I was on a date with somebody, it was great. And then suddenly, like in the bedroom, or suddenly when we're moving forward and becoming more intimate, then this like racist comment jumps up, or like this dehumanizing idea pops up, or like, and what do you do then? Like,
Yeah.
who
What do
taught
you do?
us how to deal with that in that moment? No one. Like, who would you talk to? Um, so there was a lot of informants that shared similar stories, that it's like it's a switch between we are in the real world among people, and then suddenly when we enter the bedroom or when we become intimate, then there is suddenly a hierarchy that wasn't
Wow.
maybe visible before.
Right. Kind of like some sort of idea like, okay, like now we're in this intimate space. I have your attention and I can just, I don't know, play out these racist fantasies or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think it's a compliment. Like, oh, I never been with a black person, like this type of, that it's a compliment, like I want you so much, is just that that's being consumed by someone, that's not being appreciated. And if we don't know the difference, like the quality in how it feels, which brings us into the somatic sexology, or the dance and movement therapy, then it's really hard to know what kind of experiences do I want to have compared to this person that I maybe, appreciate a lot, or we talked a lot before, or what we want or not. But it's like, how do I know how a yes feels like?
Right. Yeah, over time, I can imagine, your own ideas about sexuality, your own desire becomes, I don't know, muddled or sort of like transmuted by these other cultural messages.
Yeah. Like, yeah. And also, if we look at pornography and the different types of categories that pornography have, which is very common. Well, maybe like when I grew up, maybe I think maybe we are the first generation that had like access to pornography without it being something that was debated or discussed between our parents or adults. But if pornography is the only way for me to explore my desires, my sexuality, and so on, and I think that this is normal, then I would also internalize those messages about how Black women act or should look, and so on and so on. And when we're raised with, white parents, or parents that have a different ethnicity, it's really hard for the parents to know or to realize that this might be a topic that we actually should try to talk about, like to support you in making decisions that are good for you.
Yeah. I mean, sexual health, for one, is often a difficult topic for parents, let alone, if we're talking about racism, oppression, fetishization, and then back to the language piece. Do all the participants of this dialogue even have the language to really describe what's happening in the room?
Like, yeah. And some of the informants, they started with saying, no, but everything is good. And I said, okay, can you describe what that means? I said, well, everything is good. And I said, okay, but then can you give me an example of whichever situation where something is good? And then they start, and then suddenly it's a lot of other layers in there that I wouldn't personally describe as good. It's just that they never had somebody to talk with and actually share it, because they often feels that, people came with these excuses, like, but it was just a compliment, or she just likes you. But then it's
Mm,
like it's shallow. It's not
right.
it's not enough to actually understand international adoptees' experience in this field. Well, my research is that's what my research is telling us.
I'm so excited. I'm so jazzed for this conversation. I mean, I feel like I'm learning so much, in the like less than 20 minutes that we've sat here together. So I can imagine what it's like for your clients, who are in this population who have had these experiences, and then to see someone like you who's saying, hey, like, let's talk about your experiences, like, let's really lay it out. That's got to be powerful.
Yeah, yeah. Like the conversations are amazing, like amazing. And I think for many couples, they experience something similar that, in mixed couples or in mixed relationships, then usually one of the people in that relationship have more privileged than the other person or the other people. Maybe not in their relationship. Maybe they have, a balance and a way that works really good for the people involved, but that's not how the society view them, or that's not how the society treats them. And then it can become an unbalance because one of the people in the relationship has it's much more pressure on that person out in the big world compared to the other one. And then that can end up as a thing in their dynamic that makes it harder to find equality again, or to find the safety if we don't see the world in the same ways.
How do you talk about culture with the couples you work with?
I usually ask them to define what culture means for them. And it's the same. I usually ask, like, what is normal for you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what does normal mean? Because if we talk about what is normal, it's just normal right now in my world, in this time. Like, what is normal for you is going to be totally different. And the same from how what your neighbor thinks is normal, is also something that is totally, totally, totally different. So when we try to, look at the norms or look at what is normal, it's important to identify the harmfulness in saying that something is normal when it's just maybe normal for me and not my partner, or
Yeah.
not. My parents have a totally different idea of what is normal or what is acceptable than what I have. And I think my kids would say the same.
Absolutely. There is no one size fits all. And even with the people you work with, your clients, maybe in, 6 months, let's say it's a new normal for them and they've gained insights, hopefully working with you and doing their own private processing to come back to autonomy and, what is it that I'm searching for in connection?
Yeah. And what does a true yes feels like? Not only what should I say yes to, or what
Mm,
is, attractive for other
good.
people, or these type of things, but it's like, how does a yes feels in my body? How do I know that something is like yes? And
Yeah.
then it comes back to, how do we know when something is a no? Then, like, do we actually know how a no feels? And how can we practice listening to those clues, to those voices, to those, signals in a way that makes us more, um, safe, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. If how can you have safety if you don't know what your no's are, what your limits are, and you don't feel like you can say no, in this space.
Then it's not safe,
Yeah.
like, it's not really so safe. Um, so it's the somatic sexology, or like talking about embodiment and how to find the path back, or the road back to our own, like, inner landscape, and what makes sense to me, and how can I allow my intuition or my inner guidance to become a part of how I navigate the world, is
Mhm.
always amazing conversations. Um, but also what is normal tend to fall into performance. Like, we're
Yeah.
supposed to reach a specific point, or date a specific person, or do something in a specific way. And that again intersects with our mental health, because if sex becomes more a performance, then where is the pleasure and where is the liberation? what happens with those qualities that we were hopefully that we're all longing for to have more of. And then how can we navigate back to what is true and important for us?
Yeah. These are really big questions, kind of big existential questions. And
Yeah.
juicy. Yeah. You know,
Yes.
I hope that for your clients, it can be exciting for them to say, hey, like, my space working with Anna is really about me. It's about my health, my relationships, what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Um, and I ask repeatedly, it's like, but how do you feel? Like I heard what you said, but how does it make you
Mm,
feel? Because, and that's typically being in the West, we're so much about what we're thinking about things and like, the logic and all of these things. But but then if we don't know how something feels when we're saying it or when we're doing it, then it's extremely hard to know when I can trust my gut feeling or not. Because how would I feel it if I'm not listening to what my body is saying?
mm. What do you say to a client who's like, I just really don't get this mind body stuff. Like, you're telling me like to look inside and how am I feeling in my body, and I really just don't get it.
There's so many different ways. Um, sometimes I ask, like, can you can you tell me about the situation where you remember that something was like a yes?
Mm,
And if they don't have a memory like that, then can you give me a memory or share an experience where something was a true no, whatever it is. Doesn't need to be sex related. And then when they share that experience, they usually relive that feeling because that's how memories work. That's how the body works. And then we can backtrack that. And usually they get homeworks, like to, so sometimes I ask some of my clients to ask their pussy what they want to eat. And they're like, what? And I'm like, ask her what she wants to eat. You're always deciding. Ask her. Like the next time you're shopping groceries, just ask her. Is it salad? Is it pizza? Like, ask the question. And everybody thinks it's a crazy idea, but when they are actually doing it for themselves in their head, they realize that could be a conversation on its own. Doesn't need to involve anyone else, but it's like, no, it's my body, and I actually have access to feeling what I want or not. Whatever. It's like when we're eating something that we love, and it's like, oh, so good. Like, oh, yeah, but that sounds like a
that's
yes.
a yes.
Then,
Yeah.
you know? So it can be fine, like we can find ourselves in so many different situations in our daily life. And then we just generalize that understanding to become more like the map that we orientate around. And then it's also easier to orientate around who am I attracted to, or what is this chemistry I'm feeling, or whatever it is, if I'm out or if I'm whatever I'm doing. And then we can like, right, okay, now, okay, I remember, or like I feel it now, right? This is how it feels, and it's like, okay,
Oh,
there it is. Good,
I love
save
that
save it.
comparison. That comparison to food and figuring out what you want, what you're feeling. I mean, we are using bodily intuition and signals throughout our daily life. Maybe no one has explained it that way when it comes to sex and relationships, but you kind of know when you want to eat something or when you want to lay down and rest. So how about,
Yes.
do I want to, approach this person? Do I want to know them better? Yeah,
Yeah,
things
or
like
like, do I need to go to the bathroom, or am I constantly waiting for whatever, it's better timing after this and this. Okay, but if you get the
mm,
signal that you need to use the bathroom, then that's also an opportunity to show yourself the respect that, okay, I am listening, I am going to do this, or I'm actually thirsty, I am going to grab a glass of water, not just, move it ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, because whether or not we listen to our bodies, we're with ourselves 24/7 our whole lifetimes. So why not listen?
Yeah. So it's a practice, and it looks different for everyone how that process looks like. But when we can, come back to the flow of being in a sexual interaction with someone else or with myself, and we can bring back the sacredness, how to honor my experience, how to honor my body, how to honor the present moment, whatever the present moment entails, then we're also back to the baseline, or like to the core of what it means to be a being that has access to sexual energy or desires or longings. So it's like a universal language, from my perspective, that a lot of people lose along the way because we run, to figure things out and to do all of the things that we need to do.
Right. I mean, there's so much to do, endless chaos in our busy lives. It's probably easier at some point to say, yeah, I'll just kind of shut myself down. I don't have time for this. And then over time, losing that connection.
Oh, it's so easy to shut it down. Like, I think we do it all the time. Like, it's
Mm,
we need to
yep.
do the opposite. Like, we need to remind ourselves to prioritize self-care, or to prioritize silence, or whatever it is. And I think a lot of people have this idea that, oh, but I will go on a vacation in 4 months or next year, or I'm
Mm.
going to work until then. But if we can microdose the self-care that we actually need, if that's 15 minutes a day instead of scrolling on your phone, then you can choose that. Like, that's a choice
Boom.
I can make. And then
Yeah.
maybe I should just do it. I can, if I want to scroll, okay, I can scroll, but maybe I start with 15 minutes and I put a timer, and I just take care of my hair, or listen to my favorite music, or
Yeah.
dance, or eat something on a, beautiful decorative plate, or whatever type of self-care is, because I need to be attuned to my body if I want to share it, or when I want to share it with someone. Because if I'm not attuned, then how would I say yes or no to something? It's it, it
Yeah.
like, that's a slippery slope for making good decisions.
Yeah, it is so personal, postponing pleasure, any kind of enjoyment you can experience now and thinking, hey, I'll just redeem my pleasure ticket, 4 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, or tomorrow, or on Saturday. Okay, yeah, like, yeah, and maybe you need to do that from time to time. But, like, there's so many ways to experience pleasure and playfulness, and the beauty in the present moment. So when we can allow ourselves in small periods of times or micro moments every day to just appreciate something, like fully appreciate whatever it is, then we're also tuning in to a different type of softness and connection.
Mhm.
So it looks different for different people, obviously, but we can also match that with the type of, like, sensory input that person appreciate. If it's music, if it's journaling, if it's watching art, if it's whatever it is. um, and then you can build that up or build upon that, adding other sensory inputs, because when we're and this is, like, the definition of being grounded is to be in balance with your sensory input. It's to be in your body, like to feel that your body is your home, that you're there, not that you're checked out. So it can be tricky for people who's not so comfortable being in their bodies for different type of reasons, trauma, for example. But it becomes even more important to practice in a pace that is manageable or that feels okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, it all sounds delicious and fun and oh, it's so easy. Like once I start prioritizing this, everything's going to be better. And there's some truth in that, like yeah, things will be better when you have that autonomy, when you have that connection to self. And maybe it is a really long journey with bumps on the way.
There's always bumps in the way. Like life is bumps,
Yeah.
and somebody said, or if I read, that we're basically cucumbers with anxiety. Like we're 80% water and then we have anxiety. And that's who we are. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's true. Um, but I think we tend to simplify it. We come with those excuses like, oh, but it doesn't change this, or I still need to do this. It's like, yes, you are an adult. You do need to do your shit. You can still allow yourself to listen to your favorite song.
Yeah. Right.
Like it's
It goes
it's
back to
not
that.
in contradiction. It's not either or. Like it's not
Yeah.
yes or no. You can do both. You just need to take the responsibility in holding those 5 minutes or 10 minutes or
Mm,
15 minutes. And that's on you. Like you need to make that decision and to
I
let go.
love it. I love that. It's like kind of carefrontational of saying, hey, you're in the driver's seat. You have choices here. Are you going to find some self-care today or not?
Yeah. Like and fine, of course we cannot do it always in the same, like in the way that we want. But if we can be on social media an hour every day, I think we can
Mm,
find 10 minutes. Like I think every adult can find 5 or 10 minutes every day to listen to their favorite song or to just, roll their shoulders and relax or stretch their jaws or, something that just makes us come back. I'm pretty sure everyone has that time every day.
yeah. And what a difference it'll make when you choose that decision and make it part of your daily life. Hmm.
Yes. Like it's
Hmm.
amazing because we're also, if we're grounded, if we're regulated, whatever challenges we need to face that day, but if I can face them when I'm regulated, it will feel easier than if I start the morning immediately feeling panicked or stressed or anxious or whatever it is. And then I run through the day, fixing everything. But if I take 5 minutes every morning, listen to my favorite song, relax, stretch my jaws when I brush my teeth or whatever it is, then I will feel even more capable of doing all of the tricky, impossible things that I might have that day. And that's also a responsibility I would really want everybody to take it or to do it.
Yeah. Great advice, great suggestions. And if I could get one more suggestion from you, when it comes back to working with international or transracial adult adoptees, what would be your number one piece of advice for therapists and counselors when working with this population?
Check your bias, like check them,
Mm.
because the amount of time I heard, and many international adoptees that I know have heard, oh, but you should be grateful, from like a professional or from a mental health practitioner. Like that's a lot of times. And it's extremely unnecessary thing to say because it doesn't take us anywhere. It doesn't take anyone anywhere. Like I promise we heard it before. I
Mm.
promise we thought about it. It's not it's not helpful. Um, it also, and because then again we're back in the either or, which is not helpful. So for it's not helping. But for
Yeah.
anyone who is meeting somebody with a background or a story that you don't know what to say, or you cannot relate entirely to this person's experience. And I think everybody, learned this at some point when they studied counseling or psychotherapy or psychology. Ask questions if you don't know.
Hmm. Right.
Just
Your
do
client
that.
is the expert. They're right there.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
ask, how does it make you feel? Or like, how would you wish it to be? Or, ask a question. I think that's the best advice, because you can always do something with the next answer. But if somebody tell me, whoever it is, that, oh, but you should be really grateful that you didn't grow up on the streets in Brazil. I
Oof.
get, it's like, what, how do we know that it's the streets? How, like, it just
Yeah.
opens a million other doors that I also probably don't want to share or have a discussion with that person who is telling me that at that point, because it's also not what we were actually talking about. Like, it
Mhm.
was not what I said. I was saying something else, and you missed the point. You took us sideways, and now I feel unheard. I feel unseen, and I feel misunderstood. And I don't know how to, you know, defend myself and not overshare and still
Mm.
maintain some kind of connection or trust, because everything suddenly just broke. From a perspective of sexual health, adoption touches on reproductive health and rights in so many ways, because our parents had their reproductive rights acknowledged, but probably not, almost none of our biological family or parents had that
Mm.
privilege. So there is a lot of things from different perspective that is involved all the time in, who am I, what rights do I have, who do I belong to, and all of these things. So I think you do have to be a bit smarter than starting with the grateful thing. Like, you do have to learn how to shut the fuck up, and just think before you talk. In that sense, if you're a professional, please be
Right.
quiet. And then,
I know, right? Yeah, let's bring some care, compassion, some curiosity to our client. Yeah.
well,
Well, one final question before we close, Anna. How often do you kiss and tell?
that's a good question. Um, do we talk about people, or like, how often do I kiss random
Yeah, I know. It's kind
things?
of an off the wall question. The way I interpret it is really a cheeky way to ask, how often are you talking about sex and sexuality?
Oh, every day as a sexologist is basically the only thing I do, I think. Like, all the time, all the
Yeah,
time, all the time. Maybe not always not so often in a sexy way, though. I think it's not,
yeah.
maybe, but I always bring in sexology or sexual health, though. It really doesn't matter what I'm talking about. I'm like, wait, do you know that? And then it's like,
Yeah. I mean, it says it right there in the background, certified sex coach, somatic sex educator, master of science in sexology. So that
yeah,
tells you everything you need to
it's,
know.
I think so. It's like what I do. Well, I don't talk about it with my mom. She is really not interested, or she doesn't. And this is just a sidetrack, but when I took my master degree, when I was finished, you get the degree and you're like, yay, celebrating. Then she cried and she was like, what should we do? And I'm like, what? Do with what? And she's like, well, do we have to talk about sex now? Like, should we throw you a party and everybody needs to talk about sex? And I'm like, what? No? Or like, what? Why are we
Mm,
crying? Like, aren't we supposed to be happy that I finished my master? Like, are we crying because we were embarrassed? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, so not with her, but basically everyone else I do talk about sex.
Yes. Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me, Anna. I'm so happy that you reached out and pitched this idea because we've had this whole fabulous conversation, and I know that our listeners have learned so much because I have. Um, you know,
That's a
there's a
good
lot to
thing.
contemplate. Yeah,
So much. No, and it's great to be here. And it's always, I think we learn a lot in conversations
yeah.
rather than, reading 10 books and trying to figure out how something correlates or not. So, no, I hope that people learned something new.
And where can our listeners stay up to date with the work that you're doing in community?
I think the easiest is to find me on Instagram, which is, I think I have the tag on my background, the adopted sexologist. I'm
Lovely.
also on Substack, same tag, the adopted sexologist.substack.com. I think those are the easiest places. Right?
Beautiful. Well, dear listeners, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check out Anna's work that she's doing, stay up to date, and, keep the conversation going. Share what you've learned here with a friend or two. And until next time, take care.